We've now come to our Friday feature, Movie Spotlight, reviewing the latest releases at the Korean box office and online. In the critics' chair this week are Jason Bechervaise and Darcy Paquet. Gentlemen, hello. It's good to see you both.
Hello.
Yeah, good to be here.
Now, local summer blockbusters are returning to the theatres this week, starting with the release of Alienoid, or 외계+인 Part 1 in Korean. Well, actually, it's written 외계+인. It's from director Choi Dong-hoon, whose most recent films, The Thieves and Assassination, both topped 10 million admissions. Now, Darcy, can you first tell us more about this film?
Yes, it's an unusual mix of science fiction and period fantasy. So it's set simultaneously in the present day and then also at the end of the Goryeo dynasty. And, like other films from this director, it has a really large ensemble cast. The biggest roles are taken by Kim Tae-ri from The Handmaiden, Ryu Jun-yeol, and Kim Woo-bin, who's making his return to the screen after recovering from cancer, actually. But it's very much a blockbuster. You've got these really ambitious action sequences, a lot of special effects. Some people are kind of describing this as Korean movies for the Marvel era because it's kind of on that scale. It's got a lot of characters. There's, in the Goryeo dynasty, it's not a very realistic setting. They're like people doing magic. Shooting the film took a full calendar year because they actually shot 2 movies. We're getting the first part now, then part 2 will come out next year. So there's a lot riding on this film. It's a very high budget film.
Yes, it's a very ambitious movie, epic in scale, set in both present day and the late Goryeo dynasty. Jason, can you tell us a bit more about the story and try to summarize it for us?
I'll try. It's a bit complicated, but yeah, the general concept is that there is alien species from another planet who decide to lock up their prisoners inside human brains. Now, the human hosts live their lives without being aware of what's happening, but the story starts to take shape when a few of the prisoners begin to escape. We got Kim Woo-bin, who plays an alien robot who is in charge of managing the prisoners, and he's able to move back and forth through time. So he's simultaneously dealing with issues in the Goryeo era and the present day as well. And there's also a dosa, kind of a magician in the Goryeo era, played by Ryu Jun-yeol, who's trying to get his hands on a magical knife.
Okay, so Darcy, it's mixing science fiction, aliens, it's also a historical period piece with fantasy as well, time travel as well. It seems fair to say that in terms of storytelling, it's quite an unusual film.
I know they've packed so much into this film. It's over 2 hours, and still you get the sense that they don't really have time to slow down, to spend much time on any particular scene or character, that they're rushing ahead to get it all in. In some ways, it reminded me of Hong Kong fantasy films from the 1990s. I don't know how many of our listeners will have seen many of them, but they're crazy. They're just filled with energy, and they're kind of very fast-paced. And this film seems to have been somewhat influenced by those films. But yeah, it's a different kind of storytelling because, we're accustomed in Korean films to take some time to get to know the characters and to start to feel an emotional connection with the characters. In this film, there are a lot of different elements to the film. And rather than depth, once you get into the film, you start to realize how everything fits together. And that's kind of the pleasure of watching this film is, seeing all the pieces fall into place. And we'll get part 2 next year, but by the end of part 1, you do get a sense of how all these different time periods and characters are all linked together.
Okay, so do all the pieces actually come together then? Does it work?
Logically it does make sense. It is a tough film to follow, and again, it's weird because there's, you get this clash of different time periods and styles, and you've got pistols in the Goryeo era, and you've got all kinds of things going back and forth. But yeah, it does. I think it does fit together.
It does fit together, but is it fun, Jason?
Oh yeah,
is it a good film?
It is fun. It's bloated. It feels very bloated. There's a lot going on. It's an interesting point that Darcy made that Yeah, I mean, Korean films generally, they focus quite a lot on characterization, and that helps with the melodrama and attract a wide demographic. Here, we're kind of thrown right in the middle, and it's difficult to kind of navigate your way through it, at least for parts of it, but by the end, you kind of see the pieces come together, although not all of them, because we've got another film
Part
to
two.
come. But yeah, no, I had a lot of fun actually. Visually, it's really interesting. Darcy mentioned, the Marvel films. There's also Terminator 2. There's a sequence very much that pays homage to a sequence from that film. Science fiction has had a hard time connecting with audiences in Korea.
Sure.
And I'm a little bit concerned that may be an issue here. We'll have to wait and see. But I admire the ambition. I love some of the characters in the film. The visual effects are really impressive. You've got periods, you've got Marvel, you've got science fiction, you've got it all in there. Does it work? Yes and no, but certainly I had a good time watching it.
Right, because when I saw the trailer, there was so much going on. I feared that it just wouldn't all come together, that it would just feel too bloated.
Yeah.
But Darcy, are you on the same boat? Was it fun still?
I liked it too. It's been really interesting to see the reaction to this film because, with a lot of films, they come out and everybody's pretty much in agreement whether it's a good film or a bad film, but there's a real tug of war over this film.
Okay.
At the original press screening, there are a number of critics and journalists who really didn't like the film and were quite negative about it. But then you're seeing a lot of people go online and say, well, I really enjoyed the film and it was a lot of fun and the atmosphere in the movie theater was good. And then others who are going on Naver and writing these nasty comments. And so you've got
Right, okay.
strong forces pulling in both directions. And so it'll be interesting to see how long this film can kind of keep up its momentum, particularly given that we have big films coming up in the coming weeks.
Exactly. This film was hoped to start off the local summer blockbuster season, especially after the industry has been suffering so much over the last couple of years. It's being followed up by major releases such as Hansan, Emergency Declaration, and Hunt in the coming weeks. Jason, do you think it's going to be able to draw in audiences, start this much-hoped sort of summer of revival?
I think it'll end up doing okay, but I think after Along with the Gods, which was another 2-part saga, and then the first film did extremely well, I don't see it performing as well as that film. It's not going to have the opening weekend. I think that you kind of need for it to go anywhere near 10 million admissions. But I do hope it hangs around. It will be tough going ahead because there's just so much coming out.
Hansan, like you can feel the earth shaking.
Yeah.
Sure.
So I'm a little bit worried, but it's certainly generating a discussion, which is good,
Sure. And there's also, of course, the resurgence of the COVID that will affect the admission numbers as well, unfortunately. Anyway, it's called Alienoid and it's out now in Korean cinemas. Let's turn to our second film for this week. It's another ambitious effort, this time by Netflix. They're producing an action blockbuster on the scale of the Bourne films or the James Bond franchise. That's the aim anyway. It's called The Grey Man and it's based on a novel by Mark Greaney. And it's budgeted at $200 million and is currently having a brief theatrical run before going on the streaming platform in the coming days. Jason, so who are the people behind this film?
Well, fans of Marvel will certainly recognize the directors, Anthony and Joe Russo, who directed Captain America, Winter Soldier, Captain America Civil War, the Avengers films, and so on and so forth. And they're no strangers to helming these big, expensive feature films.
Sure.
Although this film is a little bit different tonally, it's an interesting one. So we got Ryan Gosling of Drive and of course La La Land. He's a highly trained special agent. We've seen this all before. He's quite a formidable foe. And then we have the really bad guy who's played by Mr. Captain America himself, Chris Evans. So Yeah, and we've also got also playing a key role is Ana de Armas, who played the lead in Knives Out, also
Sure.
starring Chris Evans, of course. And so yeah, it's an interesting cast and team behind the film.
Sure. Interesting cast and interesting team behind the film, as you said. Darcy, can you tell us about the plot, though?
Yeah, I mean, it opens with the hero, played by Ryan Gosling, who is being recruited out of prison. So basically, he's given the option of joining the CIA, being trained as a special agent, but as a nameless one who's sort of off the books. That's why they call him the Gray Man. And basically, it's kind of this indentured servitude that he's expected to enter into. But he takes the deal rather than stay in prison. And this job, it turns out to be a mixed blessing at best. I mean, he does seem to be someone with a conscience, and so he carries out these missions, and he's taking out different people. Normally, they don't tell him who it is that he's killing or any details about the background. But right at the beginning of this film, he sets out to kill this person. He realizes just before he succeeds that the person he's killing is in the same agency.
Right.
This guy's codenamed Six. The guy who he's killing is Four. And just before Four dies, he hands over a USB drive with really incriminating evidence about the agency.
Okay.
So the plot's not terribly original, but
Sure. Okay. Jason, from what I've seen of the critical response, once again, this is another film that has split the response. I guess the two questions to ask then, A, is it good? And B, is it fun?
Yeah, it's okay. I mean, it's certainly slick. You can see where the money's been spent. Chris Evans is having an absolute blast playing the villain in this film. Tonally, it's a bit of a weird one. It's never really taken very, very seriously. But yeah, no, we've seen these films before. Certainly, Netflix is spending a lot of time financing genre content.
Sure.
Obviously Squid Game and Stranger Things, and this film as well, which is budgeted $200 million. And this is the kind of content that Netflix feels has an audience on Netflix, and they're going through. They have gone through a bit of a rough patch. And will it pay off? I hope. Well, hopefully for them, I suppose. I would put it on a Friday night. To be honest with you, it's not a bad film. It's pretty simple,
Sure.
and slight, but it's fine. That's it's kind of fun.
It's fine is not a ringing endorsement. Darcy, is this film good enough to really kind of help Netflix through this rough patch that they're seeing?
I don't see it really helping Netflix very much. I mean, they must be hoping to kind of break even on this, perhaps. But yeah, I mean, the film, it doesn't really stand out. I mean, certainly you can see that they spent a lot of money. There's a big action sequence that takes place in Prague that apparently cost $40 million to shoot.
Yeah.
You could shoot how many Korean films with what it cost to shoot this single scene.
It's set all over the place as well.
Yeah,
I mean,
it's just running all over.
Yeah, no, it's going from one country
Sure.
to another. Berlin, Prague, London.
Yeah. And the thing is,
Washington.
I'm a fan of these genres, and I really enjoy the Bourne films and
Yeah.
007. But those are very. You get the sense that they're very sharp, whereas this one is very blunt. And there's energy, but it's not particularly controlled energy. It's just kind of like throwing everything at the wall. So for that, it didn't really leave a big impression on me.
Sure.
I wasn't.
It's almost like if it just hadn't been $200 million,
Well, I mean, maybe, I guess. I don't know.
it would be yes.
Certainly there's talent behind the camera
Sure.
and in front of the camera, but
Okay.
it didn't seem to come together.
We'll wrap it up there. Jason, Darcy, thank you for your thoughts as always, and we'll see you again next week.
Yeah, have a great weekend.
Take care.